This tiara is not just a jewel. It's the reason royal family ties were quietly broken and why one duchess reportedly locked herself in her room for 3 days. It was meant to symbolize love. Instead, it became a symbol of shame, betrayal, and a silent war that no one dares to mention publicly. Why did Queen Mary tear apart other royal crowns to create this one? And what happened to the woman who was supposed to receive it but never did? Why did its new owner refuse to wear it in public for years? And what exactly did she say when she found out who it was truly meant for? The story only gets darker. Secret stone swaps, a missing royal brooch, a quietly dismantled parure, all covered up for decades. And then, in 2023, the tiara reappears at a state banquet on her head, the one who, by all royal logic, should never have worn it. You won't find this story in the official archives, but here, we'll tell it. Watch until the very end, because the most disturbing part of this story isn't the diamonds. In the early 20th century, as King George V ascended the British throne, his wife, Queen Mary, quickly proved she was far more than just a royal consort. She was a true architect of royal elegance, a woman with a collector's eye and a deep understanding of symbolism. To her, jewelry wasn't just about sparkle or monetary value. Each stone, each setting, each motif told a story, a visual expression of power, heritage, and continuity. It was from this philosophy that, between 1913 and 1914, one of the most intriguing and understated tiaras in the royal collection came to life, the honeysuckle tiara. Commissioned from E. Wolf & Co., longtime jewelers to the crown and collaborators of the Gerard firm, the tiara was no ordinary request. Queen Mary didn't ask for newly mined stones or exotic gems from the empire's far corners. Instead, she made a bold decision. She dismantled 2 existing tiaras from her personal collection, the Ladies of England tiara and the Surrey Fringe tiara, both wedding gifts from 1893. Their diamonds were reborn in a completely new design. The result was a masterpiece, a tiara both structurally majestic and delicately floral. Its frame featured a refined, interwoven pattern of honeysuckle blossoms crafted from diamonds, symbolic of grace, loyalty, and enduring beauty. But its most striking feature was its interchangeable central element. Unlike most tiaras of its day, this one could be adapted. Queen Mary could swap out the center according to mood or occasion with options that were themselves exceptional jewels: a cabochon emerald, a faceted pink topaz, a large sapphire brooch, and most notably, the legendary Cullinan 5 diamond, one of the crown's most iconic stones. Not long after its completion, Queen Mary was photographed wearing the tiara with the Cullinan V, a look that radiated serene authority and classic grandeur. Later, in the 1920s, it reappeared with the sapphire centerpiece, casting a cooler, more introspective glow. Yet, despite its beauty and versatility, the tiara was rarely seen in official portraits. It remained somewhat elusive. Not hidden, but held back. It was personal. To Queen Mary, jewels weren't accessories, they were instruments of meaning. The honeysuckle tiara wasn't created to impress the public, it was built to endure. It wasn't a fleeting fashion moment, it was a message, one encoded in gold and diamonds, meant to outlive her and speak for her long after she was gone. And speak it did. Because this tiara's story was only just beginning. By the mid-1930s, as Europe teetered on the edge of seismic change, a quieter, more intimate moment was unfolding within the British royal family. In 1935, Prince Henry, the 3rd son of King George V and Queen Mary, married Lady Alice Montagu Douglas Scott. The ceremony was modest by royal standards, deliberately stripped of grandeur, yet filled with sincerity and dignity. And it was during this transition into royal life that the honeysuckle tiara found its next home. Unlike many other wedding gifts, lavish emerald parures, diamond brooches, and strings of luminous pearls, this tiara was never shown to the public. It didn't appear on display, wasn't listed in press reports, and wasn't included among the official wedding exhibits. That was no oversight, it was a deliberate choice. Queen Mary had gifted the tiara privately, not directly to Alice, but to her son, so that he could pass it on to his bride himself. No photographers, no courtiers, no fanfare, just a family gesture. Lady Alice, now Duchess of Gloucester, began wearing the tiara soon after the wedding. Her first major public appearance in it was during the 1937 coronation of her brother-in-law, King George VI. In a sea of ermine, velvet, and towering headpieces, Alice appeared composed, elegant, and crowned with the tiara that had once adorned a queen. It wasn't a statement of ambition, but one of quiet continuity. Over time, it became clear that the tiara held personal significance for Alice. Though she owned at least 6 tiaras, she famously acknowledged only 2 as truly hers: the turquoise tech tiara, gifted by her husband, and the honeysuckle tiara, passed down from Queen Mary. In a candid moment later in life, she once remarked, "I've already got 2 tiaras. One Queen Mary gave me, and one he did when we married. Sufficient unto the day, don't you know?" It wasn't self-deprecation, it was principle. For Alice, jewels were about meaning, not accumulation. While Queen Mary had preferred wearing the tiara with the dramatic Cullinan 5 diamond, Alice more often chose the central sapphire brooch, a cooler, quieter stone that reflected her understated elegance. During World War II, when Prince Henry was appointed Governor General of Australia, the tiara likely accompanied her on many formal occasions abroad, though photographs were rare. Her relationship with the honeysuckle tiara was intimate and unspoken, woven into the fabric of her public image. It wasn't meant to dazzle or dominate, but to support, to complete. Like a signature you recognize without reading. She didn't need it to make a statement. Its presence spoke volumes on its own. In her hands, the tiara began to evolve. No longer just a piece created for a queen, it became the visual emblem of a duchess who quietly shaped her role with restraint, with grace, and with absolute confidence in who she was. But the brightest chapter of its story was still to come. By the early 1950s, as Britain slowly emerged from the shadows of war and began redefining its place in the world, the Duchess of Gloucester had quietly secured her place within the royal family. Her presence, graceful, composed, and consistently refined, became a constant in the background of royal life. And during this period, the honeysuckle tiara stepped out from the shadows and into the spotlight. No longer was it simply a wedding gift kept for sentimental reasons. The tiara began accompanying Alice to some of the most significant events of the era. In 1950, she wore it to the Anglo-Danish Society dinner in London, and shortly after to a gala performance at Covent Garden, a celebration of art returning to its rightful place in British culture. That same year, the tiara also appeared at a state banquet in honor of the President of France. It became clear Alice had chosen the honeysuckle tiara as her official diadem. In 1951, during the opening of the Festival of Britain, a national exhibition showcasing innovation and renewal, the presence of this historic tiara sent a powerful message. It bridged eras, a jewel rooted in Victorian tradition worn in celebration of a modern post-war Britain. And in 1953, during Queen Elizabeth II's coronation and the glittering gala that followed at Covent Garden, the tiara once again crowned Alice's image with quiet dignity. Throughout the 1950s, the Duchess typically wore the tiara in its original form, with its honeysuckle diamond framework and central diamond or sapphire element. But following the death of Queen Mary, Alice inherited a more unusual centerpiece, a faceted pink topaz, previously reserved for alternate configurations of the tiara. Though she tended to favor the traditional versions, she began experimenting with the topaz, introducing a warmer, softer tone into her formal wardrobe. This evolution was captured most clearly in the portraits taken by famed photographer Dorothy Wilding. In those iconic images, Alice appears serene, composed, and quietly radiant, not commanding attention but drawing it nonetheless. The tiara, subtle yet structured, doesn't overwhelm. It enhances. It completes the portrait of a woman who never needed to prove anything and therefore said more with silence than others could with spectacle. Through the 1960s and into the 1970s, the tiara continued to accompany Alice on royal duties. In 1960, it returned to Covent Garden. In 1963, it appeared during the Belgian state visit. In 1968, it lit up the RAF Golden Jubilee banquet. The tiara changed very little, and that was its strength. It didn't need to adapt to remain relevant. Its beauty lay in its proportion, its poise, its quiet authority. Even in her later years, Alice never fully retired the tiara. In 1971, she wore it for the Japanese state visit. In 1972, for the Dutch royal visit. In 1977, for the Silver Jubilee Gala at Covent Garden. And in 1982, during the Order of the Bath service, she wore it publicly for the final time. By then, she was the longest living member of the royal family, and the honeysuckle tiara had been by her side for nearly 5 decades. But before stepping back from public life, Alice made one final, deeply personal decision to pass the tiara on to her daughter-in-law, a woman with a different background, a different sense of style, and a new role to play, but perhaps the same instinct for quiet elegance. The transfer of the honeysuckle tiara to the next generation didn't happen with public fanfare. There were no photographs, no official announcements, no royal ceremonies. It was quiet, private, a gesture passed from one woman to another, rooted in trust and understanding. By the late 1970s, Duchess Alice, now elderly and largely withdrawn from public life, passed the beloved tiara to her daughter-in-law, Birgitte, the Danish-born wife of Prince Richard, who had recently inherited the title of Duke of Gloucester after the death of his father. This was not merely the gifting of a piece of jewelry. It was a symbolic handover from one duchess to another, from one generation to the next. Birgitte brought with her a refined Scandinavian sense of style, understated, modern, and quietly regal. From the beginning, she had shown respect for tradition while carrying herself with a distinct contemporary elegance. She was, in every way, the right woman to carry the legacy forward. Her first public appearance in the tiara came in 1975, during the state visit of the King of Sweden to the United Kingdom. The image of this new Duchess, wearing the same tiara that had once graced Queen Mary and later Duchess Alice, made it abundantly clear. The honeysuckle tiara wasn't just surviving, it was evolving. In the years that followed, the tiara became a regular fixture at high-profile events. Throughout the 1980s, it sparkled at state banquets for dignitaries from Oman, the Netherlands, and Norway. But this wasn't simply a matter of royal duty. Birgitte made the tiara her own. One of the most fascinating aspects of this new era was how Birgitte began to explore the tiara's full potential. While Alice had favored the sapphire or diamond centerpieces, Birgitte often opted for the pink topaz, a warmer, softer stone that brought new life and color to the otherwise classic design. Eventually, she also began incorporating the cabochon emerald, frequently pairing it with an emerald necklace inherited from Princess Alice, creating a cohesive, modern royal look. Throughout the 1990s, these choices became even more pronounced. In 1991, she wore the tiara for the Polish state visit. In 1992, for the visit of the Sultan of Brunei. in 1993 for Malaysia, and in 1995 for the wedding of Princess Alexandra of Sayn-Wittgenstein-Berleburg. The tiara appeared again and again, always familiar, yet never repetitive, reimagined each time through styling, color, and detail. One of the most remarkable developments of this period was how Birgitta began building full parures around the tiara. She wore it with matching pink topaz and diamond earrings and 2 striking necklaces. One featured a teardrop-shaped pink topaz, the other had a bolder, more geometric design, incorporating an old brooch, once part of Queen Mary's collection, that had been repurposed into a pendant by Princess Alice. Now, under Birgitta's care, these elements came together to form a stunning and cohesive jewel set. Thus, the honeysuckle tiara was no longer just a historical heirloom. It became a living, breathing part of modern royal fashion, versatile, elegant, and smartly styled. Birgitta wasn't imitating the women who came before her. She was having a conversation with them, honoring their legacy while confidently adding her own voice. By the early 2000s, it was unmistakably clear. The tiara belonged to the Duchess of Gloucester. Other tiaras, though historic and beautiful, faded into the background. She had chosen this one, and through it, she had written her own chapter into the tiara's evolving story. Yet the honeysuckle tiara's most enduring moment in the modern age, the one that would once again place it in the spotlight, was still to come. By the early 21st century, the honeysuckle tiara was no longer just a family heirloom. It had become a visible symbol of royal continuity, a jewel that had passed through generations, not as a relic, but as a living thread of tradition. In a time when tiaras were worn less often and royal appearances were increasingly modern and understated, this tiara endured, quietly, confidently. The Duke and Duchess of Gloucester came to play a key role in representing the royal family at official events, especially during state banquets held at the historic Guildhall in London. While they may not have attracted the same media frenzy as more prominent royals, they became quietly indispensable, the embodiment of duty, stability, and grace. In 2001, during the state visit of the King of Jordan, Birgit wore the tiara with its warm pink topaz. In 2005, she appeared in it once again for the official visit of the King and Queen of Norway. In 2008, for the French state visit, the tiara made yet another appearance. No longer an alternative piece, but an unmistakable signature of the Duchess herself. What stood out most in this modern era was Birgit's near-total dedication to this one tiara. She gradually set aside other tiaras she had inherited, even those with rich histories of their own. The honeysuckle tiara became her first choice, not by obligation, but by intention. She had made it part of her identity. It didn't need to shout, it simply belonged. In 2016, it appeared once again at the Guildhall. In 2017, it was worn at the state banquet for the King and Queen of Spain. And in 2019, during the banquet honoring the President of the United States, the tiara once again glittered beneath the grand chandeliers, just as it had for over a century. By then, over 100 years had passed since Queen Mary first had it commissioned, using diamonds from dismantled tiaras, fragments of one legacy transformed into another, a crown remade, a symbol reborn. Then came 2023, and a moment that felt especially full circle. During the state visit of the President and First Lady of South Korea, another banquet was held at the Guildhall. The Duchess of Gloucester arrived in a deep blue gown, adorned with the Royal Victorian Order and the Royal Family Order of the late Queen Elizabeth II. And once again, the honeysuckle tiara was there, this time in its pink topaz configuration. She paired it with matching earrings and 2 dazzling necklaces, one with a bold pink topaz drop, the other featuring a repurposed brooch from Queen Mary's collection, redesigned by Princess Alice years earlier. Each piece told a story, each sparkle carried memory. By now, this was far more than just a tiara. It had become a quiet manifesto, a jewel that didn't just represent history, but actively participated in it. The honeysuckle tiara is no longer just something worn. It is something lived, a bridge between eras, between queens and duchesses, between silent duty and personal expression. It passed from one woman to the next, not losing its meaning, but gaining new dimensions with each bearer. And in a world where traditions often fade into formality or fashion, this tiara remains, elegant, steady, relevant, not because it tries to keep up, but because it doesn't have to. If you happen to catch a glimpse of the Duchess of Gloucester today, walking into a banquet hall beneath the golden light of a palace, with the honeysuckle tiara crowning her presence, you're not just seeing a piece of jewelry. You're witnessing a living story, one that still isn't finished.